By the second quarter of 2025, the secondary watch market had fallen for 13 consecutive quarters. And the strange part isn't the number, but which watches got hit hardest. Those watches that got hit aren't the ones you think. I am talking about the ones people bought believing in them. The ones still sitting in velvet boxes, wearing the dream they were sold at retail. Number 8. Chopard LUC. The pitch was airtight. In-house movement. Geneva seal on complications variants. Fairmined gold. Ethically sourced, certified, traceable. A family-owned Swiss house, free of conglomerate pressure, building credentialed watches at prices that looked like relative bargains next to Patek or Vacheron. And yet the LUC is a bloodbath on the secondary market. The numbers aren't ambiguous. Independent tracking puts Chopard's average depreciation at roughly 43% from retail in year one. Not from a fashion house. Not from a marketing-first brand with no horological credibility. From a manufacturer that makes its own movements, certifies them to the hallmark of Geneva standard, and has been doing so since 1996. What the depreciation actually communicates is this. Collectors don't know where to put Chopard. The brand sits in no man's land between jeweler and watchmaker, between mass luxury and haute horlogerie. The LUC side is technically serious. The happy sport side is a diamond floating fashion piece. The Mil Miglia side is motorsport sponsorship marketing repackaged as product identity. 3 different identities sharing one name. And the collector community responds to that confusion the only way it knows how, by discounting. There's a man in Geneva, a serious collector, who bought the LUC Tourbillon Billy Kid in 2019. Reference 161926 to 5001. A $25,000 watch. Credentialed movement, careful open-work finishing, limited to 250 pieces. He held it for 4 years. When he listed it in 2023, the highest offer he received was just under $14,000. He turned it down. He still has it. What makes the LUC story worth understanding is what it reveals about how value actually works in this market. Credentials matter, but credentials alone don't build a collector base. A collector base comes from desire, from community, from the shared conviction that owning the thing carries meaning. And that conviction has to be consistent across everything a brand makes. The moment a brand is also producing diamond floating fashion pieces, the man who wants to be taken seriously for his tourbillon has a problem. The product is correct, but the context has been eating away at it. Let's sit with one number. Chopard's LUC XPS Twist, a dress watch using the caliber L UC 96.17L, retailed for around $12,000. On the pre-owned market in 2025, you can find clean examples with box and papers for between $6,000 and $7,000. That's a watch with a legitimate Geneva seal, in-house movement, and impeccable surface finishing. Half price on the secondary market. Not because it's a bad watch. Because the brand hasn't built enough of a monoculture around watchmaking to make collectors compete for these pieces. The LUC makes everything right on paper. The secondary market has never responded to paper the way it responds to desire. Chopard's problem is identity. The next watch's problem is timing. Specifically, the moment an entire era ended and took several $1,000s of resale value with it. Before we move on to the next part, let me tell you this. Most people don't realize this, but buying a watch the wrong way can cost you thousands, and you won't even notice it until it's too late. That's why I created a complete insider guide to buying watches. The goal is simple. I'll help you stop guessing and start buying smart. You'll find the guide in the pinned comment and description. Now, let's move on to the next part. Number 7, U-boat. Some watches don't lose value because they were bad. They lose value because the decade that loved them ended. In the mid-90s, Sylvester Stallone visited a Geneva boutique while scouting for a film, bought several Panerai Luminors, and liked them enough to go back and buy more for the cast. That accidental endorsement effectively launched a trend that would define men's watchmaking for the better part of a decade. Oversized, bold, military heritage framing, something that announced itself from across a restaurant. By the early 2000s, the large case watch was the signal that you understood what luxury was supposed to feel like. U-Boat arrived inside that moment. Italo Fontana had founded the brand in 2000, working out of a Tuscan villa near Lucca, with a design language rooted in drawings his grandfather had made for the Italian Navy in 1942. The watches were enormous, 45, 47, 50 millimeters. The crown sat on the left side of the case. An aggressive crown protection system wrapped the whole assembly in something vaguely industrial. The U-Boat aesthetic announced itself loudly, and the market rewarded Thekis' announcement. For about 5 years, the secondary market for U-Boat watches today is one of the quietest places in horology. Not hostile, not controversial, just still. A standard U-Boat Classico from 2010, originally retailing between $3,000 and $5,000, depending on configuration, trades on Chrono 24 for somewhere between $800 and $1,200. That isn't a correction in a category. That's a category ending. The mechanism of the decline is worth understanding because it applies to other watches on this list. U-Boat didn't make a mistake in 2015 that caused this. There was no bad strategic decision, no quality scandal, no movement revelation that embarrassed the brand. What happened is that wrist culture moved. Case diameters pulled back toward 36 and 38 millimeters. The same visual energy that made the U-Boat feel powerful in 2007 made it feel dated by 2016. By 2024, the cultural context that gave the brand its meaning had dissolved entirely. Fontana kept innovating through all of it. The Capsoil collection introduced actual liquid, visible between two sapphire crystals, shifting and catching light with the movement of the wrist. It's a strange and committed idea, not a gimmick in the cheap sense, but the audience that might have appreciated it had already left for smaller, quieter watches, and there was nobody left to tell. You can buy a U-Boat today for roughly 20 cents on the dollar of what the original owner paid at retail. That ratio tells you everything about where the conversation went and who stopped having it. A watch retailer in Milan told me the last time a U-Boat sold at or above list price in his showroom was in 2011. He keeps a few in the case because certain clients ask for them. The price has moved once in 7 years, downward. Before we go on, what brand did you most regret buying at retail? Let me know in the comments. Moving on. U-Boat is a clean case of trend death depreciation. The next watch is more complicated, a prestigious name that let distribution strategy eat its own prestige. Number 6. TAG Heuer Carrera. The Carrera deserves respect before we get to what happened to it. Jack Heuer designed it in 1963 and named it after the Carrera Panamericana, a road race so dangerous that organizers canceled it after 5 years because participants kept dying on the mountain stages. The watch that carried that name had real substance: column wheel chronograph, Valjoux 72 movement in the early references, a motorsport connection that was literal and documented rather than invented by a marketing department. The vintage Carrera is still a serious collector's watch. Reference 2447 from the late 60s, the one with the big eye 30-minute counter at 3 o'clock, changes hands at auction for prices that would make anyone who owns a modern Carrera look away quickly. So what happened to the modern version? Gray market distribution happened. And it didn't happen gently or briefly. It became structural to how the brand operated. TAG Heuer's approach to retail distribution through the 2000s and into the 2010s left significant inventory in gray market channels. New Carrera chronographs were available from authorized dealers in certain Asian and European markets at 20 to 30% below MSRP. This created a specific and compounding problem. Anyone buying at full retail in the United States or the United Kingdom was immediately underwater before the watch ever touched their wrist. Not because the watch was bad, because the distribution system had already told the secondary market what the real price ceiling was. The numbers are measurable. A modern TAG Heuer Carrera Heuer 02 chronograph uses a decent in-house caliber, COSC certified, running at 28,800 vibrations per hour. Retail in the United States sits around $6,000. On watch charts and Chrono 24, a clean, pre-owned example trades in the $4,000 range. Some configurations do worse. The gray market overhang means there is almost always a near-new piece available below what a year-old used one can ask for, which compresses the entire second-hand market from above. Compare that to what Rolex did when gray market pressure threatened its positioning in the 1990s. They tightened supply, reduced authorized dealer counts, made scarcity a structural feature of the business rather than an accident of production. TAG Heuer went the other direction. Volume, availability, the democratic luxury argument. The democratic luxury argument is a legitimate principle. It is not a value retention strategy. There's a woman in Chicago who bought a Carrera in 2021 as a graduation gift to herself. Heuer Zero, 2 movement, black dial, 42mm case. She paid $5,900. She had it appraised in late 2024, just out of curiosity. The number was $3,200. She said she wasn't thinking about selling it. She also said she hadn't worn it in 8 months, which is its own kind of answer. The vintage Carrera survives because it has a story the gray market can't replicate or flood with inventory. The modern Carrera survives too, but inside a discount ecosystem that makes every retail purchase look like a contribution to someone else's second-hand margin. The Carrera got hit by distribution choices made above the product level. What comes next got hit by something more internal, the wrong identity inside a brand that had the tools to avoid it. Number 5. Omega Constellation. I want to be honest about this one. I keep coming back to the Constellation, and I'm not entirely sure I've found the clean, single explanation for it yet. It's the watch that makes the least narrative sense as a depreciation story, and that's exactly why it belongs on this list. Omega is the second largest brand by transaction share in the secondary watch market, according to Chrono24's H1 2025 data. With steady growth and consistent collector demand, the Speedmaster Professional Moonwatch and Seamaster 300M hold their value better than almost anything at their price point. The Silver Snoopy Award editions trade above retail. The brand has deep community support, documented heritage, and a product line that mostly delivers on its promises. But the Constellation is the quiet embarrassment inside a strong house. Watch Charts data from 2025 shows in-production Omega watches trading on average 38% below their retail price on the secondary market. The Constellation sits at the worst end of that range. Current references: the coaxial master chronometer in various configurations, retailing between $4,000 and $6,000, trades second-hand at prices representing somewhere between 40% and 55% of retail, depending on the specific piece. Some configurations sink further. Here's the observation that keeps nagging at me. The Constellation has METIS certification. Master Chronometer Standard means the movement has been tested for accuracy to 0 to plus 15 seconds per day, verified across 8 positions and orientations, and confirmed for magnetic resistance up to 15,000 Gauss. That is a real credential, not marketing language. The Omega coaxial escapement represents a legitimate engineering choice with measured performance advantages. The dial finishing and case execution on the Constellation is better than what you receive from TAG Heuer at a directly comparable retail price point. The movement earns its money. The case design doesn't earn it back on the secondary market. The Griffin claw lugs, the integrated bracelet on certain configurations, the TV screen dial variants. These design choices read to the secondary market as jewel luxury accessory rather than serious watch. And that categorization carries a brutal financial consequence. Luxury accessories depreciate. Serious watches, when the market believes in them, sometimes hold and occasionally appreciate. The Constellation got filed in the wrong column, and the movement's credentials don't change the filing. The saddest version of this story belongs to the collector who understands exactly why the Constellation is undervalued, buys one correctly on the secondary market at 40% below retail, reasoning that the bones are better than the price suggests. That person is right about the watch. But if they try to sell it, they'll discover that being correct about a watch doesn't make the market confirm the position. You can be right about value and still be stuck with it. The collector base that could have rescued the constellation was never large enough and never vocal enough to change the narrative. And Omega, to its credit, mostly stopped trying to fight that and redirected investment toward the Seamaster and Speedmaster families where the demand was already living. The constellation got caught between definitions of what it was. The next watch had no such confusion about its identity. That made the collapse more specific and more expensive for the people who believed in it. Number 4. IWC Aquatimer. Some watches don't just lose value, they get discontinued. The secondary market forgets they exist, and then the prices stop moving at all. Not down, just still. Which is in some ways the worst outcome, because at least a declining price is evidence that someone is paying attention. The IWC Aquatimer ran as a line of dive watches from 1967 until IWC quietly pulled most references from the catalog across 2023 and 2024, redirecting creative energy toward the Portugueser and Pilot families. At its height, the Aquatimer was a thoughtful proposition with genuine design ambition. The Chronograph Edition Galapagos Islands, reference IW379502, was a striking piece in black vulcanized rubber with a charcoal dial and a dive extension inner bezel that rotated with a dedicated crown, retailing for around $7,000. The Aquatimer Deep 3 featured a depth gauge complication that could read down to 40 meters, sitting above $10,000 at retail. IWC discontinued the line while it was still commercially viable. From a brand management perspective, that's often the correct call. Exit before the decline rather than after. What the calculation doesn't account for is what happens to the people who bought in good faith at full retail and are now holding something the brand has stopped defending. There's a particular kind of cruelty to owning a discontinued watch from a brand that's still growing. IWC didn't collapse. The Portugueser Perpetual Calendar just received investment and an updated in-house caliber. The Pilot's Chronograph is getting expanded distribution. The Aquatimer is getting a Chrono 2.4 listing at 40% below what the previous owner paid, sitting alongside 17 other Aquatimers at similar prices, waiting for a buyer who won't be arriving in a hurry. The Chronograph Edition Galapagos Islands, which retailed for $7,000, clears today for $3,800 to $4,200 on a good day. The Deep 3 sits lower. Collectors who love the design exist, and they're vocal about it on the forums. There just aren't enough of them, because IWC stopped reminding anyone that the Aquatimer was worth caring about the moment they stopped producing it. This is the mechanism that doesn't get examined enough. Brand support drives secondary demand. When IWC turned its advertising and editorial presence toward other families, the Aquatimer lost the infrastructure that had been quietly holding its secondary value in place. Without new watch comparison points, without AD window placements, without media coverage of new references, the second-hand pool for Aquatimers became a small, slow-moving thing. Enthusiasts sell into it occasionally. New buyers arrive rarely. The price moves accordingly. The people who bought Aquatimers at retail absorbed the cost of IWC's product line decision. Nobody consulted them. Nobody warned them. The decision was rational from the brand's perspective and expensive from theirs. Picture the man who bought the Deep 3 in 2018. He chose the watch because it did something nothing else at that price point did. It told him exactly how deep he'd gone. He was a recreational diver. The complication meant something concrete. He paid $11,000. He opened Chrono 2.4 last year and saw it listed by 3 different sellers between $5,000 and $6,000. He isn't a flipper. He bought for love. But that doesn't make the number less real. Do you own the watch? Or any discontinued reference from a brand that's still active and growing? So, the Aquatimer got discontinued and left to find its own floor. What comes next was never discontinued. It just became something the market decided it was finally allowed to price honestly. Number 3. Panerai Luminor 44mm. This one is personal for a lot of people who discovered watches in the 2000s. Let's be careful and precise about it, because the Panerai story has a real watch at its center. The Luminor has genuine historical roots. The Italian-Navy relationship is documented across archive records that predate Panerai's commercial launch into the broader luxury market. The sandwich dial construction, in which a cutout upper layer sits over a luminous lower layer to create both visual depth and exceptional legibility in low light, is a design solution that was developed for operational use rather than for boutique display. When the brand launched the P9000 caliber family in 2009, it was a legitimate advancement. In-house manufacture, automatic winding, 2 mainspring barrels delivering a 72-hour power reserve. The P9010 followed as a refined successor with a slimmer profile and an improved balance bridge, hacking seconds for precise synchronization. A real movement, not a specification built for a catalog page. But the 44mm and 47mm Luminors were swept up in the oversized wave of the mid-2000s, and they are paying the price of timing. WatchChart's data shows standard large-case Luminor references trading at roughly 40% below retail. The PAM 01392 retailed for around $8,000 and trades secondhand for well under $5,000. Even at 42mm, the case still reads as oversized against the current taste standard of 38. The secondary market for Panerai is liquid. You can sell one. You just can't sell it for what you paid. The Paneristi community deserves acknowledgement. These are people with encyclopedic knowledge of PAM references, who collect replacement straps as a hobby inside a hobby, who can tell you the difference between a PAM 111 and a PAM 111B from 2 meters away, who actually love what these watches represent. But even a devoted community can't move the price needle when the broader market has decided the case size is dated. Enthusiasm is not demand. Demand is what drives price. Here's what makes the Panerai situation worth examining closely. In 2016, the brand released the Luminor Deux, a thinner proposal at 42mm, explicitly built to address the size problem in the lineup. The secondary market received it more warmly than the standard large-case Luminors, which means Panerai's own product development team saw what was happening before most owners of existing pieces understood it. They built the answer to a question their existing customers hadn't fully formulated yet. The person who bought a 44 or 47mm Luminor in 2014 made a rational decision for the year they were in. They bought with the taste consensus and the cultural signals that existed at that moment, and both the consensus and the signals were pointing toward exactly what they purchased. By 2026, a decade of shifting preference has repriced the watch around them without their involvement in that process. And that's the part nobody explains when they hand you the box at the boutique. You're not buying permanence, you're taking a position in a market that keeps moving after you've left the counter. The large Luminors still wear beautifully. The movements are correct. The history is real. None of that changes the number on Chrono 24. Panerai lost the size argument, and the size argument turned out to be the whole argument. What comes next lost something harder to name. The moment when the market stopped pretending that a brand's marketing was equal to its movement. Number 2. Breitling Navitimer. The Navitimer has been a working pilot's tool since 1952. The circular slide rule bezel calculates fuel consumption, airspeed, and flight time. Professional aviators used these calculations before GPS made the manual process academic. The Valjoux 72 movement in early references. The caliber 806 inches mid-century production. The in-house B1 in current references. At every point in its 70-plus year history, the Navitimer has had technical substance and a legitimate reason to exist. And then the pilot watch era peaked, and the secondary market started being honest about what the Navitimer actually was in 2026 compared to what it had been positioned as in 2015. Between roughly 2012 and 2019, pilot watches were the dominant conversation in watch media and collector communities. Military heritage, functional complication, an anti-establishment luxury argument, all leather strap and black dial and nothing frivolous. The Navitimer sold well because the cultural timing was aligned with what the watch offered. Breitling leaned in. Navitimer airline editions with specific carrier liveries, collaboration pieces, chronograph variants in 41mm, 43mm, and 46mm case sizes for every wrist committed to the pilot identity. By the first quarter of 2025, Chrono 24's Chronopulse data showed Breitling declining 6.5% on the secondary market in a single quarter. the largest single-quarter loss among major Swiss brands in the index. The Navitimer specifically trades at roughly 35 to 40% below retail, depending on reference and condition, with the larger case sizes performing worse than the smaller ones. What shifted wasn't anything Breitling did wrong in the conventional strategic sense. The aesthetic market moved. Dress watches gained momentum. Cartier's Tank and Santos surged in secondary share. The generation that was culturally positioned to adopt the Navitimer as their signature piece arrived, preferring cleaner dials, smaller profiles, and brands that read as more quietly assured than loudly competent. The Cartier Panthère gained roughly 20% in secondary value during the same period Breitling was declining. The watches that won were the ones that looked like they weren't trying. This is the trap of trend-adjacent heritage. The Navitimer has real history, but when the market decides it wants something different, history doesn't automatically protect the investment. Heritage is a premium asset when enough people want to own a piece of it. When the cultural audience moves on, the history stays accurate and the price still drops. There's a former airline captain in Munich who bought the Navitimer B1 chronograph 46 inches 2018, around 7 or 8,000 euros at the time. He used the slide rule bezel exactly once to work out a calculation he already knew the answer to. By 2024, the same reference was listed on Chrono 24 by multiple sellers for 4,000 to 4,200 euros. He says he kept the watch because he loves what it represents. He's been saying that for 2 years, and the ask price has kept moving down while he says it. Georges Kern, Breitling's CEO, said something striking at Dubai Watch Week. He stood in front of an audience of industry insiders and said, "Nobody is buying an analog watch to read time. Nobody." Carl Friedrich Schuffele from Chopard agreed from the same stage. It's a strange thing for watch company executives to say publicly. It's also the most honest acknowledgement available that the functional premise which made the Navitimer worth buying is no longer the reason anyone buys it. When the function stops being the point, what remains is a large, complex chronograph, competing against 100 other large, complex chronographs in the second-hand ecosystem, and the conversation becomes about price. The Navitimer will always have its people. They're loyal, knowledgeable, and correct about what the watch represents historically. But their loyalty is not enough to hold the price where it was during the Pilot Watch moment. Markets don't care about loyalty, they care about demand, and demand moved. Breitling lost the Pilot Watch moment, and the moment turned out to be the whole support structure. What comes next never had a moment in the collector sense. It built moments through marketing spend and called them heritage. The secondary market has been pricing that distinction in, slowly, and then all at once. Number 1. Hublot Big Bang. Let's be accurate about what Jean-Claude Biver accomplished with the Big Bang in 2005, because the story requires accuracy before it can land properly. He took a brand nobody cared about, and the nobody was widespread and documented. Hublot had existed since 1980, making rubber-strapped gold watches with no collector community and almost no presence in serious watch conversations. In 2004, founder Carlo Crocco brought Biver in as CEO, and Biver took a 20% stake. He built something actually new around it. The Art of Fusion concept combined materials Swiss watchmaking had traditionally treated as belonging to separate worlds: ceramic and rubber, carbon and titanium, sapphire and gold. The Big Bang's case design, with its 6 bezel screws and porthole proportions, introduced a visual language that had no direct precedent in Swiss watchmaking. And Biver understood something that most Swiss manufacturers didn't, or wouldn't admit. In the early 2000s, visibility was its own kind of value. LVMH acquired Hublot from Crocco in 2008 for a price that was never officially disclosed, though estimates from industry sources placed it somewhere between 450 and 500 million Swiss francs, roughly 2 times the brand's projected 2008 revenue. The marketing scaled accordingly. Usain Bolt's sprinting image was attached to the brand. FIFA partnerships, Formula One, high-profile charity auctions. The Big Bang appeared on wrists that the culture had decided mattered, and appearing alongside those wrists was supposed to transfer cultural weight to anyone else who wore one. For a while, It worked. Between 2008 and roughly 2017, Hublot was ascending. New boutiques, revenue growth, limited editions moving at or above retail on the secondary market. The brand had broken into a tier it had no logical claim to occupy, and that tension was part of what made it interesting. By 2025, Chrono Hunter's analysis of secondary market data puts average Hublot depreciation at roughly 40% from retail. The Big Bang specifically, the watch that built the entire brand, trades on the secondary market for approximately half what buyers paid at boutiques between 2010 and 2020. Big Bang references in standard titanium or ceramic configurations, retailing at $12,000 to $15,000 new, clear for $6,000 to $8,000 secondhand. Some references, particularly from collaborations that have lost their cultural relevance, do considerably worse than that range. So what actually happened? The Big Bang ran on a modified Sellita Eboche, a base movement sourced from a Swiss movement manufacturer and modified to Hublot's specifications, at price points that approached and occasionally exceeded $12,000 for standard, non-precious metal configurations. The marketing infrastructure was extraordinary. The movement foundation was not. Buyers were paying for visibility during an era when visibility felt like a legitimate luxury proposition in its own right. The secondary market only pays for what a watch is at the moment of sale, not what being seen wearing one meant during the brand's cultural peak. The watch world bifurcated badly after the secondary market's March 2022 peak. Second quarter of 2025, across 13 consecutive quarters of decline, prices for non-Rolex, non-Patek, non-AP references had fallen to an average of 31% below retail. The Big Bang didn't simply fall into that category. Its specific combination of marketing, over-movement pricing, and mass cultural visibility made it one of the watches that helped define what the correction looked like. I've spoken with pre-owned dealers who describe the Big Bang as the watch they're asked to take in on trade more often than almost any other reference, and also the watch where the gap between what the seller expects and what the market will pay is consistently the widest. The offer arrives. The seller looks at the number. The seller says no. The watch goes back in a drawer. A few months later, the seller comes back. The offer is lower because supply kept arriving while they were deciding, and the market absorbed it at a lower price. The second visit usually ends differently from the first. There's a scene that repeats in the Big Bang story that rarely gets examined directly. The people who bought these watches between 2010 and 2018 weren't making irrational decisions. The brand had momentum. The marketing was executing at a level that Hublot had no business achieving from its starting position. Every cultural signal said the purchase made sense. What those signals couldn't account for is that cultural momentum doesn't compound the way a movement specification does. A column wheel and vertical clutch in a chronograph will still be a mechanical fact in 20 years. The moment when wearing a Big Bang to a Formula One paddock event meant you had arrived, that moment had a shorter shelf life than anyone wearing one wanted to calculate at the time. The Big Bang generation bought visibility. Visibility depreciates on a curve that looks, in retrospect, very much like the Chronopulse Index over the past 4 years. What connects all 8 watches on this list isn't poor quality or dishonest marketing. Some of these watches are technically excellent. The LUC has better finishing than watches that cost twice as much. The Navitimer B1 movement is a serious piece of engineering. The Panerai P9010 is a real manufacturer caliber. What they share is that the secondary market, the only market that tells you the actual price rather than the aspirational one, has made a judgment about each of them, and that judgment is now priced in, whether the people still holding them have checked recently or not. If you own one of these, the calculation isn't complicated, even if it's uncomfortable. Love it and keep it, and wear it without attaching your net worth to the resale number. Or sell it now, while the floor is still somewhere you can locate it, before the next correction takes it somewhere you'd rather not see on a screen. The watches that held their value through all of this didn't protect their complications or their sponsorship budgets. They protected the feeling of scarcity. The sense that getting one actually meant you had gotten something others couldn't easily have. That feeling isn't a movement specification. It isn't a marketing campaign. It's the only specification the secondary market has ever paid a consistent premium for, and it isn't for sale at any boutique. Which of these is in your collection right now? Let me know in the comments. Like and subscribe.